nice station wagon to have around the house.
The 1974 Volkswagen, covered by VW owner's security blanket.
So today on Let's Talk V-Dubs, I brought in a friend of mine, Cris Clark, that I've known for a long time here in Las Vegas, and he's a fantastic artist. He's built plenty of cars. You've seen some of his cars. I know that you have in some of the magazines. A lot of the dreams that he's created on paper have been built in real life. He's built quite a bit of them. Cris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. I think this is a really great idea. I heard that TV ad's 10 pounds, so or my skinny shirt.
Right. No.
I hopefully that helps.
In my case,
a
it's
little
50.
bit.
So.
Oh, okay.
But so what I wanted to start off with, Cris is an artist to the nth degree. Cris has done works in mostly hand media type stuff, spray paint, pencil, paint, whatever it is, and also with metal. He builds a lot of cool cars. If you remember back when we had the Underground Garage, he did the big graffiti mural that was in there. And he's done a lot of different stuff like that. But Cris, like, when did you start getting into art?
Well, my uncle was a good artist, and that's the first memory I have of him doing, characters and a lot of Ed Roth looking stuff.
Yeah.
Ironically, he was his girlfriend at the time had a Volkswagen. And that's one of the first persons that I can remember that I thought that, everybody in my family always had old cars, but something about that really stuck with me. My grandmother said that was like my third word is Volkswagen because of that car. So that's probably how I got into drawing those vehicles and that whole thing. So
that's what kind of gets you. So you start off getting into art, and then you find out. I mean, really, there's a lot of people that I like to draw. I'm not good at drawing, but there's a lot of people that like. When did you realize that you were really good at drawing?
I guess again, my uncle saw me drawing, and mentioned that he thought it was good for a person that was young. I'm 6 years old, sitting in front of the TV, but I'm not watching TV. I'm drawing on something. So that's when I started with that.
So Cris, if you've ever seen, there's a 3-door bug out there. It's gone through Barrett-Jackson. It was really cool. The guy I'm sitting next to is the guy who built that car. Is the guy who drew the car and then built the car. Some of the other cars that he's drawn, he's done tons of artwork that I'm sure you guys are really familiar with. He's done the Brat Box, the VW ice cream truck that you started fabricating and then kind of sold that. You drew the triple cab, and
Kevin McCain saw the drawings of that.
Right.
When we were both working with George a little bit at the wagon.
Right.
And he just happened to sell 2 vehicles that a messed up single cab and then a panel bus, equally as rough. And then the drawing hit him, and I always wanted to build it, but I never was in a position to. He ended up buying those 2 vehicles back to build it.
Oh, really?
So we both went over to his place, and one weekend we really cut into it.
So you actually had a hand in helping him weld it, mock it up, and do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Stuff,
I couldn't wait to help him get that idea into a real thing sitting in the garage, kind of tacked together, mocked up.
Right.
He did 90% of the finish work and bringing it all together.
Right.
Because he's really good at all that stuff.
All sanding, paint, body, and finish
just
stuff.
Yeah. And for his first rodeo, I thought that was awesome too, because he hadn't done any major fabrication, cutting a car up and putting 2 together. He hadn't done that. So I was excited about that one. That was a fun project.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold move. I think sometimes the hardest part in doing something is like the first step, like committing to do it, like taking the Sawzall to it, getting to it, because you know that once you cut into it,
am I going to mess it up?
There's kind of no turning back. First one The first car, so we can go way back to the early 90s. You had
the 58.
The 58 bug. So the 58.
So I ended up with the 58. I had all kinds of other cars in between there. My first car was a 65 Dodge Dart, and I thought it was cool. It was all original, super nice for my grandmother, actually.
Right.
And then my first VW was a bus. I bought 3 buses, and this will put it in a time frame. I bought 3 buses. I think I had about $1,000 in all 3.
Right.
2 of them ran, and put one together that I liked. That was a deluxe.
You had $2,500 into a deluxe bus. You bought 3 buses now for $1,000.
Yeah. So I had $2,500 in this thing by the time I was done. So that just puts a time frame on when all this was happening, because now, it's unobtainium almost for most people.
Right.
Which is another reason why I ended up getting into VWs. The first one, back to the 58, I really wanted a 36 Ford.
Right.
But, that was not in my price range. I just didn't have the money. So I ended up trading that bus for the first build I did, which was that 58.
So that 58, so that some of our listeners can remember, if you go back, I think they snuck a picture of it into Volksworld back in the 90s when you showed it at a VW Classic. And it was funny because the picture says Don really likes his accessories, and his license plates were like 326 Don was just a regular issue plate.
Yeah, I've always been into rebellious punk rock stuff, anti-establishment or whatever. So in my rebellion, I didn't fill out the placard, so they didn't know whose car it was. So they just put Don because that was on the plate.
Right.
So it's kind of funny.
So that car, to bring people kind of back to what that car was. That was the car back. It was kind of a 2-tone metallic, like an aqua and a kind of a teal silver or like a silver, and it had big white walls with 520s on it. Had fender skirts,
but lowered, which I hadn't seen at the time.
And then people probably remember it because it had the Harley fishtail tailpipes, and so it really had a unique vibe. I mean, for sure the car was different. It was definitely a car that stood on its own back then. And so that's the first car that kind of was your finished car.
Yeah.
And then the next project, it's a while then till the next one, but the next one you roll out is the Reich Post. Tell us about the Reich Post.
Actually, in Secession, I think probably the one that I did the most fabrication on, and it was started out as an experiment, is the Section 8, the chopped Volksrad.
Oh, so the
green one.
The Section 8 was before the Reich Post?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, I put that one. I bought a Baja for $200, and I'd always wanted to chop cars,
right,
and customize them. I really liked that era, so I figured this was a perfect one. If I couldn't chop an egg,
right,
then I probably shouldn't be doing it. That's probably the hardest one.
I was gonna say it's probably the hardest thing to chop is a radius,
right?
Roof
And,
like that.
And it was cheap, and it took in Section 8. The name of the car came from 8 pieces to make the roof chopped.
Oh, nice.
So my view on that too was always like, if you'd never seen the roof line of a Volkswagen or any car for that matter, it would look like it's supposed to be like that.
Right. Looks like it was
some
intended
cars
to be that way.
are super chopped and squished, and sometimes they're awesome that way. Just the exaggeration of the cartoon effects. But I really wanted to make it look like. I didn't want to make it look like something else. I wanted to make it look like custom Volkswagen.
Well, in Section 8, I think Section 8, what I really liked about Section 8 was that I loved how it was a completed Volksrad. If we can classify it as kind of a Volksrad, because that's when like the Volksrad thing this was a little bit before the Volksrad thing was getting going, but you had like actual 32 Ford wheels and stuff on there, or you had like some early
50 Chevy rear wheels, 18s.
Okay. The spokes, the spoke wheels.
Yeah. And then the fronts were actually Chrysler 300 temp spare rims. And then the tires were like 37 MG. They're fendered MG. I pinstriped an MG for a guy, and he gave me a set of tires.
Nice.
So that's all kind of fell together. And that project happened really fast. Everything just kind of fell into place.
And so in respect to like the whole Volksrad thing, like I wasn't really super pumped about the Volksrad scene and all that kind of stuff. Like for me, it was just kind of like, whatever. Because I kind of saw it as like everybody would just kind of hack off a fender and slam it and then do
There's a lot of that.
not so great chop and then call it a Volksrad. But then it's not finished. And one of the things I really liked about your car that I remember is like, I looked at the car and your car had a theme, a beginning, an end, and it was done front to back, and it was, and it didn't cost you. I mean, you did it all out of your garage. You know, it's not a car
Carport.
It's not a car that cost a ton of money to build because it was all your time and labor. But I think your creativity really was shown through that car in the taking things you wouldn't normally use for seats and making those as seats. And I was like, dude,
there's a link to the military barracks folding chairs.
I mean, it had a whole thread that ran through the car that really, I dug it. You know, didn't you have you had a shovel on it or something like that? Did you have it?
Yeah, just to pull that military. Originally, it was going to be called Red Baron.
Yeah.
But there's like 4 Red Barons. There's drag cars and there's some other
Right.
bugs that are called Red Barons. So I didn't do Red Baron. Plus, Tom Daniels did a Red Baron. It was actually a helmet that you drive in, you know. So I'm like, well, I think I should probably. I ended up with etching primer, which was green, and I really liked it, and that's the way it stayed.
So that car was really awesome. And on our video. On our YouTube page, you'll be able to see these pictures of these cars as we kind of go through the video and discuss these things. But if you haven't seen them, check it out on our YouTube page. They're really awesome, really unique rides. Now, tell me, so the next car that you roll out is the Reich Post.
Yeah, that's probably the next major surgery.
I mean, that's a lot. For those that aren't familiar with the Reich Post, if you look at any of the old VW historical archives, they have a Reich Post, which is like a mail delivery vehicle, right?
And Reich Post means local post office.
And so it has like a big doghouse essentially on the back where you just load all the
super
cargo.
aerodynamic.
Yeah, it's like a big box just cut and sectioned into the back of a.
They also had ambulance too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it had a really.
Which I hope you're not really seriously hurt in an ambulance in one of those with a 25 horsepower.
You're gonna bleed out. I'm sorry.
Probably.
So
lots of IV in those.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
And so on the Reich Post, that was a ton of work. Walk me through the Reich Post. That started out as what, and what kind of things did you graft into that car? Because there were some different pieces and parts that were in that car that weren't original to the car.
Right. Well, I started out with I traded for a oval that was rusted from the door handles down, and I was just gonna make it ratty and just make it strong, physically, but make it look like it had been found in a field or something, like it was a real one. But I ended up chucking that idea because it was a lot of work, and I kind of wanted to make it a really good car. So I ended up trading for another body to Derek Campbell, a 65 that was really solid. So I cut the roof section off around the hood area and the whole dash section so I could have the small window that a split window would have.
An early splitter oval windshield.
Right. So I got that piece fabricated and lined up. And then the doors are wrong. You know, the doors on those cars frames are skinny.
Right.
So another friend of ours back in the day, and you know Todd West, he had a Bug that was a 53 or 54 rib door car.
Right.
That somebody had suicided the doors on before he got it. And he finished the car and then it traded hands and ended up getting wrecked or something. But I ran across the doors at a Volkswagen shop.
Yeah.
So I converted them back to normal doors. So that's where I got the doors. So it had the right look. And then I didn't want to use a real split window dash because I feel like that should be in a real split window, even though mine was a replica.
That's weird. It's almost like you wouldn't want to cut out a split window roof section that's hanging on the wall behind us.
Who would do that?
Don't worry, that was a rollover. I got that I got that piece from Kevin McCain. So,
ironically, that car I got the H-pattern apron from.
Right.
And a couple other pieces, small pieces that the dash pods.
Yeah. Because that car
couple of switches.
The Reich Post had a split dash in it, right?
But I hammer formed it. So,
really?
So I used a split window dash that a VW shop had hanging on their wall as a template, and then I made a wood buck of the openings, and then I had the pods and one trim ring for a glove box door, deluxe glove box door. So I hammered that out and then welded that in. I actually used a roof section from the 65 roof that I cut off.
Why'd you use the roof section? Because of the curve?
Because it's already the right convex, already the right egg shape.
So you hand formed that dash?
Yeah.
And you're like Jesse James. Well, Jesse James forges his own steel, so you need to step it
no,
up
that
a
dude.
notch,
Yeah,
right?
I need to get a mill and get a big chunk of stainless steel and hammer it into a gun. Is what I need to do next.
But
I
think that's really awesome. That I mean, I think to me it comes out as like the true Renaissance man, like the guy that like you realize the preservation of not wanting to cut up a split window dash, and then you want to form it yourself, and you look at the time and equation, you go, I could probably get more time, and I'll just hammer out a dash, and then there's.
I didn't have a lot of money for that. I had $3,500 in that car.
Yeah, I mean that car was, and that car in and of itself was really, in my opinion, and I'm not a ratty car guy. But I love all your builds that you do because they stop people in their tracks. They look at them, they get attention, and to some degree or another, they always end up inspiring people to build other cars. And so that's kind of what, in my opinion, what the hobby's about is passing on that inspiration, because as car guys, I think that's what we experience when we're a little kid walking down the street and we see a car and we're just like,
yeah,
I'm a car guy.
A lot of people see those kind of cars and they think it's unobtainium. It's just like this thing. Oh my gosh, how do I afford to do that?
Right.
But being able to build stuff, and as much as we talked about the Volkswagen stuff, a lot of it being just super ratty and just drivable, and that's kind of the theme. Still, I like the idea that they're putting something together that themselves, and then they get to go out and enjoy at car shows and make friends, and that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
I mean, I love talking to people about those cars.
Well, they're naturally a conversation starter, because it's like, I think the most amazing thing to me, at least, that I've been so hugely impressed with is like, you'll start out with an idea on paper, and then one day Chris has got a ton of drawings, and I'll play a lot during this during the video version of this podcast, and I'll have a lot of pictures of stuff that Chris has done, and Chris did a bunch
like this one here passing.
Yeah, and so there's going to be
another one,
a lot of different ideas that he has, but one day I'm looking forward to seeing the Type 34 Ghia wagon that you drove. I think that would be.
Oh yeah. Where am I going to find a Type 3? Who do I know? I think I know a guy that has a couple of those.
I don't know.
Around.
I don't know. I've got two Type 34 projects here ready to get started. It just needs the
square back roof section
push by a guy here. But I've got a parts Type 34, and I have a Type 34 that I'm building.
See, and those cars are really as rare as all the pieces are. You still see them for relatively cheap, because if you don't have everything, you're kind of not going to have everything.
They're
and that's
pricey.
Yeah. So,
well, and I don't know if you've heard recently, but there was one that was sold for a substantial amount of money, and that indirectly that pushed up the prices, because as soon as said person sold their last Type 34, they instantly jumped on the internet to buy another one with that instant regret.
Right, I've heard of that.
And then they sold it immediately. So the prices kind of pushed up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
That person should have bought a few cheap ones.
Correct.
And then sold the initial one that was in no way close to the ones that you see average.
Correct.
$3,500 ones.
No.
I mean, they're the difference between the two.
And what's interesting is now the $10,000 Type 34 Ghias are going for $30,000. I mean, that's a whole nother topic for we could go an hour just on that in and of itself. I mean, the one thing that I'll say about Type 34 Ghias is about 49,000 of them that they made in a 8-year production run. And in 1951, they made 100,000 split window Beetles. So to put the perspective of the rarity of those cars, my personal opinion, I believe that they've been hugely undervalued for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
But
okay, flashback, same time frame as that first VW bus.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Andy, we bought 3 here in town, 3 Type 3 Ghias, and he probably had 2,000 in all of them.
Right.
Oh, and 2 of them ran. One of them was flawless, except somebody had torched the wheel wells, because we're in the desert, and you're going to find a Baja.
That's what you do.
And it's going to be a Baja. And in fact, the same guy had done that. There's like a row of squarebacks, buses, bugs, Type 3 Ghias, and they all had the same torched wheel wells. So we cut out of another car that was rolled over
Yeah.
And he fabricated back in the wheel wells and made a really nice car out of it.
Yeah, that's
And he still has the rollover one that he wanted to make into a convertible. I don't know how far the project has gone now.
yeah. That's our buddy Andy, and we'll probably get Andy online in a future episode. He's been involved with Type 34 Giz quite a while. I mean,
Super good artist too.
Yeah, he's a really great artist as well. So, so let's get back to talking about. So you finish the Reich Post, and then the next project that you do after the Reich Post. What's some stuff you've been working on since then?
Well, I guess simultaneously I was doing the barn door ice cream, and that kind of just fell in my lap. That bus had been T-boned, so much so that the driver's side wheel-to-wheel distance
Right.
was shorter than the unhit side. In other words, it U'd the bus, and
Oh, wow.
I cut it and bent it back. I mean, you're talking 2 inches, but
Wow.
I cut and bent it back. So again, even though I still get 2 months ago, I got somebody emailing me about how I shouldn't cut up Volkswagens, particularly that bus. And I'm like, they just don't have any idea. Specifically, trying to find something that nobody wants. Nobody wanted it,
Right.
And then not making it. I didn't try to make it a Benz.
Right.
I didn't try to make it.
You didn't put 22s on it with airbags. And
I
all that
didn't
stuff?
try to make it a 37 Ford, or I didn't try to make it. It was still a Volkswagen, and that's kind of the thing. Leave it what it is. Let it be true to its core. That's the way I like to do it, but maybe with a twist on it.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's interesting because anytime you do something a little bit different, you usually get people that love it and people that hate it, and it's kind of one of those things where one of the things that I'm big on is I believe that VWs, they are a blank canvas for anybody who wants one to express themselves with it. That's the greatest thing about the hobbies, that there's different people from all walks of life in it, and some people just can't understand that. Like I said, you're talking about split windows and the scarcity of split windows and the volume of production that they had. I mean, there's really a lot of them. And I really think it kind of really kills the hobby when there's someone who just mandates that this is the way you have to have your car. But listen, there's usually those two camps. There's kind of the custom camp, and then there's the restoration camp. And I think there's plenty of both, but like I said, we go for an hour in that conversation, but and
I call it a success if somebody complains
Right.
about something I built that doesn't take anything from them,
yeah.
and not knowing the story.
Well, it invoked emotion out of them one way or another.
It did, and then maybe they'll get one and build it better than I did, in their opinion.
And indirectly,
Either way, they get to build a car, go to shows, meet people, have fun with it.
indirectly inspiring.
So what are you going to do? Watch TV?
People.
I mean, you're outside doing something, right?
So what happened with the ice cream bus? Did it end up getting sold a few years back?
I did. I sold it.
How far along was it?
I think it was probably 50% there.
So
it needs some more welding. It didn't run, stuff like that.
Rough metal work was all done.
Yeah. So I sold to a guy, and his I think he's had a family, like a creamery company or something like that was his grandfather's or something like that. And he was going to paint it like that, make it a creamery bus.
But you don't know what happened.
I saw a picture of it, and it just looks the same.
Okay.
It just sat. So it stalled, which honestly, I mean, most people see a finished product, don't really know what it takes. Obviously, the average person doesn't even take care of a car that's already nice.
Yeah.
You see 2017s that look like they've been chewed up and spit out.
Right.
You don't really understand what it means to take care of something. But when something like that comes up, and it isn't perfect by any means, and it never was a perfect bus.
Nope.
If it was a perfect bus, in fact, it had Charleston Supply, electronic supply, or something like that from here in Las Vegas lettering.
I know a guy that you got. I know you got that guy. Who
Yeah,
got
you know
the
that
bus
guy.
from. Yeah,
So,
this guy.
so I almost didn't want to do it because I understand that.
That historical value.
Yeah. Is it near like? But nobody wanted it. It was bent in half.
But but here's the reality. Back in the day when those cars got hit like that, and that bus got hit hard,
Those are considered a 1-ton frame.
Yeah,
full structure.
That bus was first it was a panel, so it wasn't a 23 Deluxe, and it wasn't a walkthrough panel, just a regular panel.
Mm-hmm.
But that bus would have been in any other city, any other place, and under any other person's ownership would have been headed for the scrapyard. Matter of fact, it was in a scrapyard when I pulled it out of the scrapyard, and I think what you did to it just added to it. I mean, I come from the school that I believe one day people look back and be looking to find those Cris Clark builds. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, because there's so much of you in each one of those cars, and they're so unique because it's your vision. So speaking of your vision, what project do you want to do, and what would be your ultimate project to build? If you can put a project out there right now that you want to build, like what would you like to do?
Honestly, I like all kinds of vehicles. To me, the cars and Volkswagens in general are just another media, art media. I mean, I could pull out a drawer of drawings of cars that I want to do.
But since this is a Volkswagen podcast, give me like if the check was cut and like, here, Chris, build it. What do you build? Like you don't worry about time.
Type 3 Ghia Squareback.
The Type 3 Ghia Squareback.
Yeah,
huh?
and
I have seen the
factory,
rendering and
factory looking car, and that's my stuff is custom. I like to do custom stuff. But it's factory. The third door wasn't candy purple. It was a Volkswagen looking color. It was Mercedes green.
Yeah. So we'll put a picture up of the rendering that Chris did of the Type 34 station wagon, which I think it's a pretty wild looking rendering. And the reality is, if that car were built to this day, I think even the people, all the stock people, would appreciate the time, effort, and energy put into making that car look like a factory prototype. I mean, I think you probably
I would definitely get hate mail, which again would be
comes with the territory.
Kind of success, but there it is again. Like I wouldn't want to do it to a super pristine one,
right?
Because there's only one of those in that condition.
Yeah.
I mean, if I found two, had made one car out of it.
Yeah.
I'm game. And then there's something that nobody wanted,
right,
made it into something usable.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the interesting part is as time goes on, we start seeing people build, depending on the scarcity of the original vehicle, we start seeing people build cars out of the front bulkhead of a super rare bus that they find, of a 1952 bus, and they're going to just funky green panel the rest of the thing and build it out and finish it, which is look, that's awesome. Just getting more back on the road. I think that's so.
I saw a bus
much work
recently that popped up for sale, and it was $5,500. I'm like, oh man, 63 panel in Arizona, and I'm like, oh man, that sounds cheap. And then I'm like, what? So I mean, there's no floor; it's completely rotted.
Came off the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. So I thought there's another vehicle I want to do. Back to vehicles that I would like to do, is I wanted to do one that is kind of a half scale,
right?
With the wheels on the outside. Picture a 32 Ford body size with the wheels on the outside.
You have a drawing of this.
Drawing of that. I think that would be like.
What's that one called? What's that drawing called?
I don't know.
Oh, we'll get a picture of that on there, because I've seen seen these drawings, and the renderings are really fun. I mean, that's what I love about your artwork, is when you take these renderings and you there's so much thought, time, energy put in the rendering, and it just has a flow. They look so good. And I'll showcase some of Chris's renderings on our website, on the blog post about this on Let's Talk VDubs, where Chris has got so many different renderings. I mean, he did some American Muscle renderings of cars that they never made, like the Camaro El Camino, and some really
Why
cool
didn't
stuff.
they do that? It looks like it should have been done, kind of thing.
Yeah, just really cool stuff like that. So Chris has got a ton of talent. So you also have something you've been working on called Trailer Park Limo. Tell me a little bit about Trailer Park Limo.
Trailer Park Limo is along the lines of what we've been talking about. Building something relatively cheap, having fun with it, going to car shows. Instead of having something that is a project that you have this vision of this candy painted, perfect, flawless floor. It's got to be a 2-door hard top. It's got to be this and that. which, you know, you can always go back to that. But if you find any classic car, anything pre-70,
Right.
and some lowering, some cool wheels, or even vintage stuff I see all the time. I'm like, man, that makes such a neat cruiser. And that's kind of what Trailer Park Limo is about.
Yeah.
Trailer Park Limo in the name is, you know, if you were had a certain vehicle in a trailer park, if you had a 4-door Imperial,
Right, it was
with
like a
rust
limousine. It
holes,
was like a
but it was
limousine.
lowered, had some white walls, you would be the king.
Right.
You know, you that'd be the limo of the trailer park, or even that era of the jacked up mag wheels. And I remember my uncle having those.
Just spacer block lift kit.
Yeah,
like you
that's
slap
just,
it
you
in
know,
there, jack up the back of the car.
That's just what people did. I think that formed from the gassers that didn't get finished.
Well,
they didn't put a straight axle in the front. They got the back done. They're like, that looks pretty cool.
But I think a lot of it also came from when they'd buy bigger wheels for the back for more traction.
Right.
They didn't want to cut the body, so they raised the body up to clear the wheels.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And that's where you get that whole stink bug look from.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
It's,
So
it's more akin to the lower socioeconomic areas like trailer parks and stuff like that, just because it's resources. You're back to resources and
plus that time frame. You know, it's funny, the optimism. A trailer park, you got a trailer in the 60s, in the 70s. By 80s, it was like, oh man, you know, run down because they're not made to last.
Right.
You know, the teeter boxes are just temporary. Yeah. But back then in the 60s, that was like the future of living. A house you could move anywhere.
Right.
You know,
you don't
so
want to live here anymore. Load it up and
the
roll
optimism of that, I kind of like the feel of that. You know, back then it was people were really optimistic about any. You know, that's why all these old cars got thrown away.
Yeah.
They just thought it was going to be better and better and better and better.
Everything gets better. They make that out of plastic now. Bakelite.
Oh my gosh. So junk, yeah. So Trailer Park Limo is about having fun, driving a cool car, a classic car, something with attitude, for cheap.
And it's kind of from the school of just start with what you have. Take what you have and put your cool into it.
If you're never going to have money to paint it, making it clean and having the seats good and having it look right, the right stance is cool. It's fun.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's about. And I was selling some stickers and a few T-shirts.
So you'll see there'll be a link on our website to where you can get to Trailer Park Limo, buy some of his stuff. And now you're starting to roll behind your brand that you're starting to put some time into.
Yeah, I put together a website that's just Cris Clark Customs. All the stuff that I like. I like drawing. I like doing. So maybe we'll help inspire some people to have some fun with these. You know, it's a weird time frame with electric cars right now.
Right.
And the whole vision of the future being this autonomous thing. And it's kind of a sad thing. I mean, the freedom of these mobile things that you can rolling art. And,
no, absolutely.
You know?
Well, if you go back to like what a car meant, the car started out as like, this is the piece of transportation that gets me from here to there. And then it became like, well, what makes mine different than the next guy? Then the personalization rolls in there. And then the companies start getting to like, what does the consumer want and what are people excited by? And then, which is my favorite time in automotive building period, is the 60s, bar none, because the 60s was like the 50s is like when they had a dream but didn't really have the skill. And then the 60s was like when...
Well, the guys in the 50s got together, and they're car guys.
Right.
And they're like working on them. And then by the 60s, they had gone to college. And now they can design cars.
Yeah, and now they were designing cars.
Now you got cars with wings and things you don't need.
Rocket ship tail lights.
You don't need that stuff.
And just cool stuff.
Right.
But I mean, I think that's why I'm so in love with the 60s as far as cars, just because there was something so futuristic. It was just about like, man, anything's possible. Like
optimism.
You just think this is a Chrysler 300? No. It's got this. No. It's got this rocket ship dash in it.
It's the G, Chrysler 300G. Right. You know, it's a special model for every year. I mean, in '62, Chevy had 13 different models
of the Impala.
Of
that
hardtops and two-door hardtops and four-door hardtops and flat top two-door hardtops and flat top two-door sedans, and it's just like incredible.
They try to get every model to have 19 different flavors so you could get what you want.
No matter what, you're walking out here with a car.
Yeah, exactly.
You have no excuses. Extinguished.
So, we talked about that. So now Cris Clark's Customs. So on that website, you'll be able to find some Trailer Park Limo stuff. You'll be able to find some of your Cris Clark renderings, things to that extent. Will those renderings be available for sale? Like if people want to purchase some of those?
Yeah, I'm going to have a line of drawings. I have a whole idea. I have about 1,000 drawings that or just need a little bit more push to be finished.
Right.
I'm going to do a series that has it's like an evolution series, and I'm going to try to do an example for everyone, every kind of car, every kind of vision. So it'll be top picture, a drawing of a stock, whatever vehicle, bug. The next one, maybe the next evolution, maybe the trailer park limo version of it, where it's just lowered, cool wheels. Maybe you got the bodywork kind of half together. It's got a blue fender, but so what? You know, you're using it, you're having fun. Your kids can scratch it. It doesn't matter, you know. And then the bottom version, the DBK version,
right, like
of it, like
completely
the pristine,
detailed,
polished under fender wells. You know, like really nice.
Yeah.
So
that'd be like a series in a single shot with those three
yeah,
cars.
Yeah, like a nice backgrounds. You know, nice size. Rivieras, Corvairs. Try to do everything. No,
there's I think that's awesome because there's that evolution that everybody goes through in their car, and they just it's you start with a dream. You kind of the worst part of the dream is kind of the middle. You know what I mean? And then the end of the culmination of the dream sometimes is not as sweet as you'd hoped, whether it be experiences building it or something that hurt it once it was done or all these kind of things. But I think it starts with a dream and that vision in your head to kind of get that car to where you can catch yourself cruising down the street in your finished car.
Blue fender or not, it's still cool. About the drive in it.
Yeah.
It really is. You know, I know a lot of people that have had super neat cars that have taken them apart to make that pristine car.
Yeah.
And lost interest or the car gets taken apart and parted out or cut up or because they wanted that perfect end version, not being capable of doing it or paying somebody to do it for them even.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see that because they're missing the whole point.
Yeah, I think growing up and trying to drive a bug and build it at the same time was kind of the balance in life. Like, okay, this weekend I'm doing X, but it's got to be ready by Monday because this is my ride to work type
I remember driving that 58 to work with no hood.
Yeah. That had to be interesting. A little bit of breeze coming through the dash.
Yeah, yeah. So the hood that I had was damaged, and then I wanted to make a flat hood. So I found two hoods to make one. Right. Again, because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the brackets finished welding because the hinge sections were rusted. So I didn't finish it before Monday. So
let me ask you this question. So we talked about your art and the time and effort you put in there. Now, if somebody sees your art and they want you to, let's say, do a rendering for their trailer park limo, is that possible? Is that something someone can reach out to you on your website and just kind of say, hey, Chris, I've got a 74 Monaco 4-door. Can you show me how to make this look cool? And would you send me a rendering? And then like, hey, here's, cost you a few bucks for rendering, obviously. But are you available to do renderings for people?
Yeah. Through Trailer Park Limo, I've been doing some. And for those, I just do like a Photoshop.
Right.
Have them send me a few pictures of their car. And then I'll just, just Photoshop a wheel idea and certain modifications and clean up a little bit or whatever. And then, because it's their car, I don't have to redraw the whole thing. They don't need me for that. But if they have that and they're like, I want to see what it looks like in this future, project, maybe they are in a position where they could have it painted or do a lot of work themselves and get a nice restored car. Then that I usually do drawings, chip food style, hand drawn with the Illustrator markers, and then I Photoshop a little bit to clean it up. But
you're available to do that for people. Like if they look at the kind of work that you do, the renderings you do, you're available to produce those for people.
Yeah. I'm gonna have, like, say, Cris Clark Custom, or they can get me on Facebook, Cris Clark, and you'll tell her right away which one. I just have Trailer Park Limo on Facebook.
Trailer Park Limo on
Instagram right now, but I'm going to have a personal page
too. And that one's at Trailer Park Limo? Is that what the thing is? Or
www.trailerparklimo.com is just the site for selling decals and stuff.
Okay.
But just hit me up on Facebook, and it has my phone number and everything. So if they want to call me and rap about stuff,
Yeah, they want to chat about stuff. If they want to call you and complain about the bus, don't bother calling. Right?
No, I've had that. I've had that.
There's some pretty bold individuals out there.
Yeah, they're quite upset. Yeah.
Listen, you can't make everybody happy, so especially when you're walking a lonely path. You're being that outlaw VW guy. So, what do you have anything that you plan on building in the future? Any kind of VW related projects that you have kind of shelf that you're looking to come out with over the next couple of years?
My view on all of that, on any car for that matter, is what comes up. What can I make cool out of this thing that's available to me?
So that's my next question. So is a lot of your inspiration derived from like, okay, I stumbled across this.
I just got my tax return.
How do I make this cool?
I got $2,500. I want to drive something old. I want to drive something fun. I want to drive something collectible.
Right.
So I'll do theories in my head. I'll just hit Craigslist or something.
Right.
And say, okay, here's this vehicle. What would I do to make this cool and have a cool old car?
Yeah.
To take to car shows and Cars and Coffee. So what's in the future? I don't know. When buses are six figures, I'm optimistic, but there's a lot of ideas I'd like to do with some of those.
Well, I believe that there's still buses out there that you could find fairly cheap as long as they don't get on the internet. And it's funny because I don't come from the school of like, if you buy a bus for $1,000 from a guy, you're stealing it from him. If you want $1,000 and you're buying it for $1,000 and he's happy with the $1,000 and you're getting goodbye. Now, if you're buying that bus for $1,000, you turn around and selling it for $40,000. I kind of come from the school of pay it forward. You know what I mean? Like if I get a deal, I don't think any of my friends I've ever charged more than what I paid for something. And so I kind of think I come from the school of like, if you get, they should be inexpensive. They've commercialized, they've pushed them up, but I still think you can find some out there. So I know I'll be on the lookout for you because especially I have to stop looking for me and start looking for you, because when I look at something, it's a basket case. You look at something like, man, that's awesome. Because again, my skill set doesn't lend itself to where I'm taking out a hammer and a dolly and a grinder and all that stuff. That's the last thing. The only reason I'm ever going to use a grinder is if I'm locked in a cage and there's a grinder in there. That's it. Other than that, I don't think I'm ever going to be grabbing that. It's just not my forte. You know what I mean? And so, but as I'm out there looking at stuff, I know I'll be peeping for my buddy Chris to see if I can find him something coming up cool.
Or Type 3 Gia. I don't know. I think I might have mentioned a Type 3 Gia squareback before.
And I'll tell you this. I will tell you this. If that car were to ever go anywhere for anything, I would have no problem, and the Type 3 Gia guys will probably give me a hard time about this, I would have no problem having Chris take it and make it into that Type 34 squareback, a Type 34 wagon. I think that would be, I think maybe the world deserves to see a Type 34 squareback wagon.
Well, what if there's a lot of concepts. Volkswagen's had a lot of ideas. Yeah. You go to the museum and man, there's all kinds of different versions and stuff. And I don't know why that wasn't one, but that's the way I would want it to look. Respect to the original design.
Yeah,
and that's the way I try to do. Even the Volksrad. I didn't put a Ford motor in it.
Right.
I didn't put a 37 Ford grill on it. It's a customized Volkswagen.
Yeah.
I had a whole story for that when people talk to me about that car.
Oh, which car? The
Section 8.
Uh-huh.
So the story is that these two people, they were drafted into the military, and they didn't like the way, Hitler's a crazy dude, right? So they escaped. And then over time, after the war and after they, got established, they ran across this particular car. And they decided they didn't like the way that project had gone, so they come up with their own concept. And because they are Americanized, they wanted to hot rod it. So that's kind of the theme
of where Section 8 comes from.
Uh-huh. I'm them first guy and him them second guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Going forward, where would you like to see Cris Clark Customs in the next couple of years? Where would you like to see that like your brand? I mean, I think we all work for a living, and our hope and dream is to evolve our passion and hobby into kind of what we do full time.
Right. And I would like to be able to do my artwork, build into some degree some vehicles, that represent my visions, and that's probably the ideal scenario. And I've really been trying to push that. I actually would have by now, I think, I had a small shop at one time.
Yeah.
Have my own shop again. I would have had that by now, but I was in a car accident. It kind of slowed me down a little bit.
Right.
To kind of start over. But I've been doing vehicle wraps for 25 years, so I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
I still do it because it's artistic.
So, any of you guys out there in the podcast sphere that have checked out Cris Clark stuff, that wanted to kind of get a little bit of that flavor for yourself, maybe hit Cris up. Maybe let's get him a stack of projects where he's got the opportunity to go kind of step out on his own and start building some cool custom projects for some people. And this is one thing I probably guarantee. I probably guarantee you get a really good value for what Cris would build you, because Cris is a really resourceful guy. He can really make
at least a concept. I would love to just be in the concept.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want me to help weld anything, which I can,
Yeah.
I can weld stuff. I mean, I don't mind doing it. It's dirty work and loud, and it's therapeutic to me.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't want me to do that, man, hey, what would it look like if I did this to this vehicle?
Yeah.
Hit me up.
Well, the guy's definitely got a million ideas, and every car he comes across is kind of a blank platform. So I'm interested to see what Cris Clark has coming up. Make sure you guys check him out on his Facebook page. I'll at Facebook at Cris Clark Customs and Trailer Park Limo.
Yeah.
You can find him through either one of those, and plus he'll be having his website up soon. Or is his website up now?
No, it's going to be up probably by the time this views.
Okay, so by the time this airs, the website should be up. Cris Clark Customs with
Yep.
an S.
Yep.
CrisClarkCustoms.com.
Yep. More than one.
And that's right. And but there's only the original. And so you heard it here first. And I'd like to thank Cris for coming on our podcast today. And go check out the website. All right. Until then, guys, let's talk dubs, and we'll see you guys later.
Nice station wagon to have around the house.
The 1974 Volkswagen, covered by VW owner's security blanket.